us speak the language of love in this sacred space of worship. Thank you. We now light our peace candle to remind us to pray for peace and act for justice. I'd like to invite JB forward to share a few thoughts of his experience in Zurich.
Good morning. When people were asking me over the last year or two whether or not I was going to be in Zurich for the Anabaptist 500, I would say no, I have no plans to go. And then things that changed about 3 months ago when I got a call from Tour Imagination, and they needed someone to assist John Sharp in his Anabaptist tour, which is an annual tour that he does around Anabaptist history sites and so forth. And I jumped at the opportunity because I knew that about halfway through that particular tour, we're going to be in Zurich for the Anabaptist 500. And so it was my privilege to be there. My job working with John is basically to keep us on schedule, keeping things moving, and working on anything that needs fixing unrelated to interpreting Anabaptist history. That's John's job. It was a great trip. We had 29 people in the group. We started out in Amsterdam and we ended up in Munich. With about halfway through, we were in Zurich for 3 days. We had a great location. We were within walking distance of Grossmünster and also the Lamont River, and we'll talk just a little bit about that. Zurich was chosen obviously for because that is really where the first baptism occurred. And I have a photo here. This is the door of a building where many people believe the first baptism. Felix Manz and a number of other people were baptized on January the 25th, 1525. Outside this house is a large community fountain where water is potable if you have your water bottles along. And you can imagine that maybe that's the water from that particular fountain was what baptized the first Anabaptists that winter night. The fountain is used in the summertime in other ways. We were there 2 years ago, and on a very hot August day, there was what appeared to be a grandfather and his 2 granddaughters splashing in the pool. So it has multi-uses. The primary celebration occurred on Thursday, May the 29th, which was Ascension Day. And for those of you who think that all the Europeans don't know a whole lot about the religious calendar, Ascension Day is basically a holiday throughout Western Europe. Everything in Zurich closed down with the exception of restaurants and cafes. So it was a perfect day for people to walk around, and the site of the main service was Grossmünster Church, which was Ulrich Zwingli's church. You can see the spires from the Lamont River. This is the Lamont River. And Felix Manz, being one of the persons that was baptized on January the 21st in 1525, 2 years later, he was drowned as the first Anabaptist martyr. And the whole Anabaptist history was pretty much ignored by the Zurich government and by the church until about 2004. There's now a plaque at the riverside which notes this particular event. Grossmünster holds about 1,200 people, and they estimated there were about 3,500 people, Anabaptists in town. Many of us were given these little stickers so we could identify who the other Anabaptists were. And you saw a variety of Anabaptists, from plainly dressed Anabaptists, Mennonites, and so forth, to those of us who dress more like contemporary Mennonites today. There were many activities throughout the day, but the main service was at Grossmünster at 5 o'clock. I did not try to get in the building. I had other things to do during the day, and I knew that in order to get in, I'd probably have to be there about noon time, and I really didn't want to stand in line for 4 hours before I could get into the service. About 9 out of our 29 people got in. One person was in the 7th row. She was in line since about noon, and another couple, just by luck, were in the front row of the balconies. So they had pretty much front row seats. Others were stuck behind pillars. I watched the service at another church there. They had 3 other church buildings, where the services were live streamed, and I was at the church where primarily where the English-speaking people visited or viewed it. The theme for the celebration was the courage to love, and the service began with a processional with where there were representatives from 12 global church organizations. They processed into Gross Munster with a congregational singing, "Holy God, we praise thy name." For the Anabaptists to be in Gross Munster was in itself an act of reconciliation. This was a church that Ulrich Zwingli was the preacher, and he was one of the persons who made life very miserable for the Anabaptists in the early years of the Reformation. There were a number of acts of symbolism if you watched it online, and if you haven't watched it online, I'd suggest watching it. I'm not sure where the site is located, but I can figure that out. But there were a number of acts of symbolism of reconciliation with groups that had persecuted Anabaptists in the past, including Catholics, the Reformed Church, and Lutherans. These acts of reconciliation represented many years of meetings and conversations in search of understanding and common ground. Cesar Garcia, the General Secretary of Mennonite World Conference, and Cetre Naioni, Interim General Secretary of the World Council of Reformed Churches, washed each other's feet as an act of reconciliation and forgiveness. One of the things that Cesar Garcia spoke about was the need to be courageous during these times, and he made the comment today, as we commemorate the early Anabaptists, I invite us to ask questions both as individuals and as churches. What does it mean to do something courageous for God's sake? He went on to say, empowered by the Holy Spirit, can we find the courage to break cycles of violence? Can we directly confront our past, not to confirm our victimization, but to heal our wounds and those of others, and to mend fractured relationships? When people ask me what was the most significant event of the day, I hesitate to name one. It was great to see Eastern Mennonite University's chamber choir in concert at a church, at one of the churches, and then also center stage during the service. But if I'm pushed to say, I say seeing Cardinal Karl Koch from the Vatican read a letter from Pope Leo XIV addressed to Mennonite World Conference and us as Mennonites, the church became very quiet where we were, and I think everyone was paying rapt attention to what he had to say. The Pope's letter built on the theme of the courage to love and challenged Mennonites and Catholics alike to show love, seek unity, and to be a servant to others. He went on to say, it likewise points to the need for honesty and kindness in reflecting on our common history, which includes painful wounds and narratives that affect Catholic Mennonite perceptions up to the present day. I doubt that the Pope is aware of all the dissension and coming apart that has occurred with us Mennonites in just the past 25 years, but it's words we should take seriously. Quote, the more unified Christians are, the more effective will be our witness to Christ, the Prince of Peace, in building up a civilization of loving encounters. Thank you.